The Royal Northumberland Fusiliers was an infantry regiment of the British Army, originally raised in 1674 as the 5th Regiment of Foot. It was given the regional designation, Northumberland, in 1782 and granted the distinction of being a Fusilier regiment in 1836, becoming 5th Regiment of Foot. The regiment adopted the title Northumberland Fusiliers when regimental numbers were abolished under the Childers reforms of 1881 and became the Royal Northumberland Fusiliers on 3 June 1935. In 1968, the Royal Northumberland Fusiliers were amalgamated with the other regiments in the Fusilier Brigade, the Royal Fusiliers, the Royal Warwickshire Fusiliers and the Lancashire Fusiliers to form the present Royal Regiment of Fusiliers. Origins. The regiment was originally part of the Dutch service and known as the Irish Regiment, or Viscount Clare's Regiment, under the command of Daniel O'Brien, 3rd Viscount Clare. In the following year the colonelcy passed to John Fenwick and the Irish designation was discontinued and the regiment was referred to as a Holland Regiment. The regiment was transferred to the British service on 5 June 1685, establishing its order of precedence as the 5th Regiment of the Line. Until 1751, like most other regiments, it was known successively by the names of the colonels who commanded them at the time. 5th Regiment of Foot 1674 to 1751. 9 Years' War. The regiment took part in the Irish Campaign of 1690 to 1691, and was present at the Battle of the Boyne, the Second Siege of Athlone and the 1691 Siege of Limerick. In 1692 the unit sailed for Flanders where they were to remain for 5 years. In 1695 they were part of the Allied forces that recaptured Namur. With the ending of the war by the Treaty of Ryswick they returned to England. War of the Spanish Succession. The regiment spent the years 1707 to 1713 in Spain. They were one of 4 English regiments who fought a rearguard action with their Portuguese allies at Campo Maior in 1709, and fought an action on the River Caya. Anglo-Spanish War. During the Anglo-Spanish War of 1727, the regiment formed part of the garrison of Gibraltar which withheld the Spanish during the 4-month-long siege. 5th Regiment of Foot 1751 to 1782. On 1 July 1751 a royal warrant provided that in future regiments would not be known by their colonels' names, but by their number or rank. Accordingly, Lieutenant General Irvine's regiment was redesignated as the 5th Regiment of Foot. 7 Years' War. The next major conflict in which the 5th Foot was involved was the 7 Years' War. The regiment took part in the raid on Cherbourg in 1758, the Battle of Warburg in 1760, the Battle of Kirkdenken in 1761 and the Battle of Wilhelmsthal in 1762. American Revolution. The 5th left Monkstown, disambiguation needed, Ireland on 7 May 1774, for Boston, Massachusetts Bay Colony. Their presence was necessary because of strong civil unrest in the area. Arriving in July 1774, the 5th camped on Boston Common. On 19 April 1775, the Light Infantry and Grenadier Companies participated in the March to Concord, and the resulting fighting at Lexington, Concord, and the march back to Boston. Casualties were 5 men killed, 3 officers and 15 men wounded, and 1 man captured. On 17 June 1775, after being under siege by American forces for 2 months, the regiment participated in the attack on the fortifications at Breed's Hill. The American forces were finally driven off after intense fighting. The regiment was heavily engaged and suffered 24 dead, 137 wounded. After spending 2 months on board ship in Halifax, Nova Scotia, the 5th sailed to New York to participate in the effort to capture the city from the Americans. They took part in the Battle of Long Island and the Battle of White Plains, the capture of Fort Washington, New York, the capture of Fort Lee, New Jersey, They then spent the winter of 1776 to 1777 quartered near New York City and were involved in skirmishes with the American forces. They were then part of Howe's campaign to capture Philadelphia, being engaged in the Battle of Brandywine Creek, where they broke the Continental Army's center at Chadds Ford, capturing 5 cannon. On the retreat through New Jersey, on 28 June 1778, the regiment was involved in the fighting at Monmouth Courthouse. While in New York, the 5th participated in several raids and skirmishes, including a raid on Little Egg Harbor, New Jersey. The Americans had been using the harbor for privateering, and this raid succeeded in destroying many buildings and boats. They then embarked from New York on 3 November 1778, for the French West Indies, landing on 13 December 1778, on the island of St. Lucia. The 5th was engaged with a small force of French and captured a 4-cannon battery. On 18 December 1778, a force of 9,000 French troops landed on St. Lucia. The small British force of 1,400 men occupied a hill located on the neck of a peninsula. The French were fairly raw soldiers trained to fight in the classic European style of linear battles. The French advanced on the British force several times. The British, veterans of colonial fighting, inflicted a stinging defeat on the French. The French lost 400 killed and 1,100 wounded to the British losses of 10 killed and 130 wounded, which included 2 officers from the 5th Foot. As a result of the defeat, the French force abandoned the island. Regimental tradition states that after the battle men of the 5th Foot took wide hat plumes from fallen French soldiers and placed him as trophies in their own hats. After 2 years in the West Indies, the 5th Foot was sent to Ireland in December 1780. They were still in Ireland when hostilities between Great Britain, France, Spain, the Netherlands, and the former colonies officially ended in 1783. 5th Regiment of Foot 1782 to 1836. On 1 August 1782, all those regiments of the line that did not have a special title were given a county designation. The primary purpose was to improve recruiting, but no links were actually formed with the counties after which the regiments were named. The 5th became the 5th Regiment of Foot, the county being chosen as a compliment to the Colonel, Hugh Percy, 1st Duke of Northumberland. Peninsular War. Whilst in the Peninsula, the regiment earned the nicknames the Old and Bold, the Fighting Fifth, and also Lord Wellington's bodyguard. It formed part of a small force which beat off an overwhelming body of the enemy at Elbowden in 1811, a performance which Wellington notified to the army as a memorable example of what can be done by steadiness, discipline, and confidence. The regiment was in the 3rd Division, 2nd Brigade under command of Major General Charles Colville. The formation was 1st 5th Regiment of Foot, 2nd 83rd Regiment of Foot, 2nd 87th Regiment of Foot, 94th Regiment of Foot. The regiment fought in the Battle of Rolica, Battle of Vimero, Battle of Corunna, Battle of Busaco, Siege of Ciudad Rodrigo, Battle of Badajoz, Battle of Salamanca, Battle of Vitoria, Battle of Nivelle, Battle of Orthez, Battle of Toulouse. Sir Charles Brook, subsequently Vere, was in Lower Canada with his regiment, the 5th Regiment of Foot, which was at the Battle of Plattsburgh in 1814. Later he was with the Army of Occupation in France, receiving the Waterloo Medal despite arriving too late for the battle. 5th Regiment of Foot 1836 to 1881. On 4 May 1836, the 5th became a Fusilier regiment and was redesignated as the 5th Regiment of Foot. The King has been pleased to command that the 5th, or Northumberland, Regiment of Foot shall in future be equipped as a Fusilier regiment, and be styled the 5th Regiment of Foot, or Northumberland Fusiliers. The regiment, which was increased to 2 battalions in 1857, saw active service in the Indian Rebellion of 1857 and the Second Anglo-Afghan War. By 1881 the 5th Foot had been awarded the following battle honours: The Northumberland Fusiliers 1881–1935. Formation. Under the Childers reforms of 1881, the numbered regiments of the line were given new titles, and were linked with a particular recruiting district, usually a county. At the same time, the existing militia and rifle volunteer units of the district became battalions of the regiment. Accordingly, on 1 July 1881 the Northumberland Fusiliers was formed as the County Regiment of Northumberland, with the following battalions: Regular Battalions, 1st Battalion, 2nd Battalion, Militia Battalion, 3rd Battalion, Volunteer Battalions. 1st Northumberland Rifle Volunteer Corps, renamed as 1st Volunteer Battalion in 1883. 2nd Northumberland Rifle Volunteer Corps, renamed as 2nd Volunteer Battalion in 1883. 1st Newcastle upon Tyne Rifle Volunteer Corps, renamed as 3rd Volunteer Battalion in 1883. The 2nd Boer War. The 1st Battalion formed part of the 9th Brigade, together with the 2nd Northamptonshire Regiment, 2nd Yorkshire Light Infantry, and part of the 1st Loyal North Lancashire Regiment, while the 2nd Battalion sailed as corps troops, and was then brigaded with the 1st Royal Scots, and 1st Sherwood Foresters, under General Sir William Gataker. The battalions fought in the following battles: Battle of Belmont, Battle of Graspin, Battle of Modder River, Battle of Magersfontein, Battle of Stormberg, Battle of Redisburg, Battle of Sanner's Post, Battle of Nowigadakt. The regiment received 2 battle honours for the conflict: Modder River and South Africa, 1899–1902. Reorganizations 1900–1908. With the continuation of the war in South Africa, a number of regiments containing large centres of population formed additional regular battalions. The Northumberland Fusiliers formed 3rd and 4th Battalions in 1900. The 3rd was stationed in South Africa, and in 1902 some of the men were in Antigua to guard the Boer prisoners of war placed there. The 4th formed part of the garrison in Ireland. Both were disbanded in 1907. In 1908 a reorganization of reserve forces was carried out under the Territorial and Reserve Forces Act 1907. The militia were transferred to a new Special Reserve, while the volunteer force was reorganized to become the Territorial Force. The new organization was thus: 1st Battalion, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Battalion, 4th Battalion, 5th Battalion, 6th Battalion, 7th Battalion, 8th Battalion. First World War. During the First World War, the Northumberland Fusiliers expanded to 52 battalions and 29 of them served overseas. It was the second largest infantry regiment of the British Army during the war, surpassed only by the 88 battalions of the London Regiment. The increase in strength was done partly by forming duplicates of existing TF battalions, and partly by the creation of new service battalions. An example of the first instance was the 4th Battalion, which was renumbered as the 1/4 in August 1914 on forming a duplicate 2/4 Battalion. A 3/4 Battalion followed in June 1915. Among the service battalions were the Tyneside Scottish and the Tyneside Irish, while the 17th Battalion was formed by staff of the North Eastern Railway, and was involved in railway construction. They earned 67 battle honours and won 5 Victoria Crosses, but at the cost of over 16,000 dead. The battalions mostly saw action on the Western Front, but also in Macedonia, Gallipoli, Egypt and Italy. The regiment was awarded the following 67 battle honours. Those shown in bold print were selected to be borne on the King's colours. The Royal Northumberland Fusiliers 1935–1968. In June 1935 George V celebrated his Silver Jubilee. This opportunity was taken of granting royal status to 4 regiments, principally in recognition of their service in the previous war. On the occasion of His Majesty's birthday and in commemoration of the completion of the 25th year of his reign, the King has been graciously pleased to approve that the following regiments shall in future enjoy the distinction Royal, and shall henceforth be designated 5th Royal Inniskilling Dragoon Guards, the Buffs, the Royal Northumberland Fusiliers, the Royal Norfolk Regiment. In 1936, the Royal Northumberland Fusiliers was one of 4 line infantry regiments selected for conversion to specialised divisional or divisional battalions. The other regiments selected were the Cheshire Regiment, the Manchester Regiment and the Middlesex Regiment. Second World War. The regiment expanded to 10 battalions during the Second World War, although most of them served as divisional machine gun or support battalions. Some of them formed motorcycle, searchlight, tank, reconnaissance, ordinary infantry and even deception units. They saw action with the BEF in Northwest Europe in 1940 and the 21st Army Group in 1944–45, North Africa 1940–43, Italy 1943–45, the fall of Singapore and in the defence of the United Kingdom. They were awarded 29 battle honours. Those shown in bold print were selected to be borne on the King's colours. Korean War. The 1st Battalion was attached to the 29th Infantry Brigade, which had been sent to Korea to reinforce the Allied effort there. When it arrived in Korea in December 1950, the brigade comprised 1st Battalion, the Royal Northumberland Fusiliers; 1st Battalion, the Gloucestershire Regiment; 1st Battalion, the Royal Ulster Rifles; 8th King's Royal Irish Hussars; C Squadron, 7th Royal Tank Regiment, with specialised armour; 45 Field Regiment RA, 11 LAA Battery RA, 170 Mortar Battery RA, plus supporting units. In July 1951, it was reorganised as 29th British Infantry Brigade and absorbed into the 1st Commonwealth Division. In August 1958, the regiment was awarded the following battle honours: Imjin, Seoul, Kawangsan, Korea 1950–51. Those shown in bold print were selected to be borne on the regimental colours. Badges and dress distinctions. The 5th Regiment of Foot was one of the 6 Old Corps entitled to use their ancient badge on regimental colours, drums and other devices rather than the typical GR cipher as used by normal regiments of the line, a distinction first officially recorded in 1747. In the centre of their colours was an image of St. George killing the dragon, this being their ancient badge, and in the 3 corners of their second colour, the rose and crown. The regiment wore a distinctively coloured hackle or plume on the fusilier cap and later on the beret. The hackle was red over white, and was authorised in June 1829. This replaced the white feather plume the regiment had adopted following the Battle of St. Lucia in 1778, supposedly taken from the headgear of fallen French troops. The 5th Foot was the only line regiment, since the introduction of the shako in 1800, to wear the white plume, although the right to wear it was only officially granted in 1824. In 1829 a new model of shako was introduced and all infantry regiments were to wear a white plume, with the 5th Foot given a unique plume of red over white. This became a red over white ball tuft in 1835 and later became a hackle in the same colours. Victoria Cross. The following members of the regiment were recipients of the Victoria Cross: James Bulmer Johnson, Patrick McHale, Peter McManus, Ernest Sykes, Thomas Bryan, Robert Henry Kane, James Joseph Bernard Jackman, Wilfred Wood, John Scott Ewell, George Cross. Only one member of the regiment was the recipient of the George Cross: Derek Godfrey Kinner. Amalgamation. On 23 April 1968, following the publication of the following notice in the London Gazette, by virtue of the provisions of the Royal Warrant dated 5 April, 1968, all officers of the land forces belonging to the Royal Northumberland Fusiliers, the Royal Warwickshire Fusiliers, the Royal Fusiliers, and the Lancashire Fusiliers are transferred to the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers with effect from 23 April, 1968. The regiment was amalgamated into the new Royal Regiment of Fusiliers. Colonels, with early names for the regiment: 5th Regiment of Foot, Irish Regiment of the Dutch Service, 1674 Daniel, Viscount Clare, O'Brien's or Clare's Regiment of Foot, 1675 Sir John Fenwick, Sir John Fenwick's Foot, 1676 Henry Wisely, Wisely's or Wesley's Foot, 1680 Thomas Monk, Monk's or Monk's Foot, Irish Regiment of the English Establishment, 1685 Thomas Talmash, Talmash's or Ptolemaic Foot, 1689 Edward Lloyd, Lloyd's Foot, 1690 Thomas Fairfax, Fairfax's Foot, 1704 Thomas Pearce, Pearce's Foot, 1732 Sir John Cope, KB, Cope's Foot, 1737 Alexander Irwine, Irvine's or Irwin's or Irwin's Foot, 1752 Charles or James Whiteford, Whiteford's Foot, 1754 Lord George Bentinck, Lord George Bentinck's Foot, 1759 Studholme Hodgson, Hodgson's Foot, 1768 Hugh, Earl Percy, Earl Percy's Foot, 1782 5th Regiment of Foot, 1784 Hon. Edward Stopford, Stopford's Foot, 1794 Sir Willard Clark, KB, Clark's Foot, 1801 Richard England, England's Foot, 1812 William Wynyard, Wynyard's Foot, 1819 Sir Henry Johnson, GCB, Johnson's Foot, 1836 5th Regiment of Foot, 1881 Northumberland Fusiliers, 1935 Royal Northumberland Fusiliers. In popular culture, Dr. John Watson, the friend and biographer of Sherlock Holmes in a number of stories by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, is stated to have served with the 5th Northumberland Fusiliers in Afghanistan at the beginning of a study in Scarlet. This aspect of the character's biography was also referenced in the BBC's contemporary adaptation Sherlock, in the episode The Hounds of Baskerville. Bibliography. 40. George. British Army Handbook 1939–1945. Stroud, Gloucestershire. Sutton Publishing Limited. ISBN 0-7509-1403-3. Field Marshal His Majesty the King. Regimental Nicknames and Traditions of the British Army. London. Gale and Polden Limited. Haythornthwaite, Philip J. The World War I Sourcebook. London. Arms and Armour Press. ISBN 1-85409-351-7. James, Brigadier E.A. British Regiments 1914–18. London. Samson Books Limited. ISBN 0-906304-03-2. Wood, Dennis. The 5th Fusiliers and Its Badges. London. D.R. Wood. ISBN 0-95132850-6.